evening, cult members, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our, what we've been saying is spoiler review of The Stand. This will be episode 7, called The Walk.
Yep. And that's what they do.
We knew it was coming. Like I said earlier, the pace is really fast. They did the whole walk in 30 minutes of this episode.
Yeah.
And again, we've talked about this in the past. She's super in depth with the book, and I'm not. I'm only coming from it from a point of view of the 93 version, and I'm really okay with the quickness of which they went from Boulder to Vegas.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, they really don't cut much out. I mean, it's a lot of day 2. We walked 50 miles today, and we, so that's fine. And they really, most of this episode pretty closely follows the book.
The book. I was going to ask how we were in the book.
Yeah,
because that's been one of the things we've been discussing is...
Yeah. I mean, all the major points. Again, they don't, go into the nitty-gritty of what's going on in everybody's minds. But yeah, nitty-gritty.
Gritty. I appreciate it that the most of this episode was, I mean, we know we're going to Vegas. We know that's going to happen. We know that our heroes are going to Vegas. We've already been to Vegas
a bunch of
times. But as viewers, the Vegas episode was really interesting in how they set up everything and how it's full on Caligula there and everything. Yeah. This episode I found very interesting with the beginning, because the first scene is Trash Can Man getting the nuke.
Right.
And from last week, the last scene in Vegas with Flag is him sending Trash Can Man to go get the fire.
Right.
And that was actually when previously on The Stand.
Right.
Which I thought was going to really interesting. And then they go and do the explosion in Boulder from Harold and Nadine's point of view.
Right.
And I found that interesting to tell their version of the aftermath before we told the version of everybody else in Boulder's the aftermath. That part.
Yeah.
So because you need to get
it's kind of a cliffhanger. Like, if you don't know the story, did everybody die? Did only Nick die?
Right.
Is Franny okay? Right. So
right.
it's a bit of we're going to keep you waiting just a little bit longer.
And we also need they need a head start.
Right.
And so starting with them and having everything, and then Harold pretty much saying we need to go before anybody did survive.
Right.
Kind of thing.
And that makes sense. I mean, there's giant explosion. There's they're trying to just find everybody and put the fires out and everything. So it's going to be a hot minute before they start going after him. And I mean, really, they didn't go after him. They just pretty much
figured it out.
Them. Oh yeah, they knew who did it, but they knew who did it because Franny knew who did it.
Yeah. But I like that they engaged in that point. They talked about how Larry, Stu and Franny have a conversation that Stu should have listened to Franny. And Larry and Herb have a conversation saying, we know, or Glenn, we know who.
Who's Herb? Glenn.
I knew it was a 3-letter or 4-letter name. They have a conversation at the hospital that they know it's Harold, and they figure out that Nadine was involved and stuff like that. So
right, because Larry had the Nadine part, right?
Yeah.
And Franny had the Harold part.
Yeah.
And then.
But I like that they did that. Like we're not going to spend time investigating on who did this. Like like 2 sentences of exposition,
and they don't have time.
And they don't have time.
Then
right.
Mother
That's where
Abigail,
I was going.
Regains consciousness long enough to tell them they need to go on this journey, and it was quicker received than in the book and in the previous miniseries. In both of those, Franny puts up more of a fight, and I don't believe you. And again, they cut that out for brevity, but it's a little like, yeah, okay, sure, let's go do this.
They have been kind of hinting at it, but I don't feel like they've come right out and talked about the God's giving us a purpose conversation. They've kind of hinted around it, but this was the first episode where Mother Abigail said, I thought God said it was supposed to be this. I was wrong. It's this. And then Franny and Stu have this long conversation about faith and belief and everything, and then they talk about it again on the road.
Yeah,
with the
Glenn and Larry, I think, are the two that have the conversation on the road.
Yeah. And so I felt that was appropriate for this episode because they're taking a leap of faith. They're completely taking a leap of faith to follow blindly this instruction to go to Vegas and do what? Like what do they aren't given any instructions outside of you need to go with your clothes on your back, you need to walk.
Yep.
And
it all gets there in the end, but
but from where we're sitting, from engaging in the story that's being told, it was nice of them to spend the time, instead of spending time on the road and spending time on trying to figure out that it's Harold and Nadine, that they spent the time talking about faith and belief and believing in whatever this thing is that is telling us to go.
Giving you a little bit more, because, I mean, if they hadn't, you would really be like, would people really do this? Would they just be like, yeah, let's go to Vegas where we're probably going to die? And, she told us flat out, one of us wasn't going to see the end of the journey.
Right.
And
which is could take that tons of different ways, and we'll get into that part too, but you're not going to see the end of the journey to Vegas, the journey to coming home, like that. I liked how the way that Mother A, the wording that they used for her was very cool. Because it was.
It's not maybe verbatim, but that's pretty much how it was in the book too. That she, one of you will not make it to Vegas. Is pretty much what she said, which you take to they're gonna die on the way.
Right. And I like that they point that out too, because they as soon as they leave Boulder, they're talking about, okay, so what are we gonna do for, like, Larry's like, what are we gonna do for food? What are we gonna do for supplies? We couldn't take anything. And Glenn and Stu says, well, let's get to the next town and take what we need.
Yeah.
And then when they get there, Larry's like, wait, didn't we grab any guns? And Glenn kind of does the whole, well, it's the spirits of what she told us and not necessarily the verbatim.
And I mean, if you think about it, they need to eat, right? So, I mean, they're not going to make it at all if they don't have food and water. So obviously they need to, get those supplies, but it's kind of a, it's a metaphor, right? Them leaving Boulder, they're shedding all of their personal belongings, all of their worldly possessions, everything that they care about, right?
So this pilgrimage.
You can't take anything.
Yeah.
And then, it's take this pilgrimage and go out into the desert, Moses and
the deserts that have mountains full of snow. But I just thought it really interesting. And then the four of them. Now, who is the Indian woman?
Ray.
So Ray, I like her addition. Now, I don't know if Ray's part of the four that goes in the book.
But it's a guy.
Okay. Yes. That's what I was going to ask, because I remember it being four guys leaving.
Yeah.
In the 93 version.
Right.
And so that's why I was asking the question.
Ray is the guy with the hat with the little feather in it. That's how they always explained him.
Okay.
And if you, I mean,
she's got the hat, and they kind of make fun of her.
Yeah.
Being indigenous and being able to find water that's not going to make them poop, and she's like, I love that levelty between all of them that they have when they leave. They find the crack in the earth, and they climb down and climb back up, and Stu falls.
Yep.
And I remember the 93 version where he dies, or where he gets the flu, not the...
Well, they haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, that's I kind of was wondering...
That is what happened in the original series.
Right.
He falls.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
He falls and he breaks his leg. And he ends up kind of camping, so to speak, under a tree, which I was like,
I do remember the tree.
He's just kind of out in the wide open, in the elements, and we live in the desert, so we understand you really don't want to be.
You want to be in some shade or
even
have something
in the middle of the winter.
Even in the middle of the winter, because the sun.
Night, we sit under the shade.
Yeah.
We're used to it.
But with Stu falling and breaking his leg and passing the torch to Larry, and pretty much this why Larry's there, is to help finish this journey.
Right.
And I just love that Larry stayed true to his character all the way through. He was trying to figure out how to get Stu out of the canyon.
Yeah.
And Stu and Herb and even Ray are
Glenn,
Herb, Glenn, the three of them, the three of them had all come to the realization of where they're at, and Larry was still that, again, the good person. Mm-hmm. No, we're going to figure this out, how to get you out. Mm-hmm. And I just love that continuation of his character, although again I feel like we haven't gotten enough time for build up with Larry.
It's all there are some things that I am not a fan of, but I feel like the biggest letdown, I guess, of the whole thing is just that there's not enough for you to feel emotionally connected to all the characters.
And we talked about this a little bit last week, that the reason that we the characters that we care about are superficial reasons that we love them or care for them, is because one's pregnant and one's special needs, and but Larry's heart keeps coming out even though he thinks he doesn't have it,
right?
And I really appreciate too that the explanation of the pills. I giggled at the explanation of the pills. Glenn, not Herb, gave Stu Oxycontin, probably,
yeah.
And told him, take one every 12 hours. If you take 5, you're not gonna wake up.
Right.
But he said it in a lot more nicer terms than that.
Yeah, he's like, that's, just remember the dosage.
Yeah.
1 every 12 hours. If you take 4 or 5, it could be lethal.
Yeah.
And in the book, it was his arthritis pills, because Glenn is considerably older than
what Greg Kinnear is.
Yeah, than what, I don't know. I assume Greg Kinnear's like in his 50s, and I think Glenn,
not Herb,
was in his 60s.
Yeah.
In the book, and it was his arthritis pills, and so he left those for him. But because he doesn't have a gun. They talked about that.
Yeah, they make a point of saying,
Larry said, "Why didn't we get guns? They don't have a gun." So
and Kojak stayed with Stu, which is both heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same. Heartwarming is really hard for me to say. It's because you're sad for Glenn,
right?
But you're happy for Stu.
Kojak just would have been caught,
right,
with everybody else, and that doesn't serve a purpose. The purpose that he serves is to stay with Sue. With Stu, not Sue. With Stu.
Wow, we're
and
whiskey next time, apparently.
Apparently. And they hopefully will. They're going to have to explain what goes on. So, again, if it's God, there is a purpose. There's a purpose why Kojak stayed.
Right. Because all good dogs go to heaven. Well, backing up a little bit now that we've kind of talked about the four of them on their walk and their leap of faith that they're taking, we have Harold and Nadine on the lamb on their bikes through the mountains, and Nadine tricks Harold into wrecking essentially, and he falls into a tree and gets speared and breaks his leg.
Yep.
And leaves him.
Yep.
And he writes his last will, I guess.
Confession?
Confession.
Yeah.
I found that really hard for me because it's perfect that he gets kind of tossed to the side and left to die in the middle of nowhere with the vultures waiting for him to die.
Yeah.
I'm glad for that. I'm glad that he actually gets killed off. Essentially, he doesn't get killed off, but he dies in a terrible way. I just wanted somebody else. I actually wanted Stu or somebody to actually shoot him or beat him up or whatever, and then leave him in the desert. But it's appropriate the way that all happens.
Yeah.
And leaving him there. And then Larry, again with his heart, goes down and covers him up so the vultures can't get to him anymore. And reads his apology, his confession,
whatever it is.
Whatever. He does kind of try to apologize, but it's too little too late kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a nice little bow for him. Nadine rides on to Vegas, runs into sees a shimmer in the desert, and it's whatever. She gets off the bike and she walks through the desert following the rose petals. And as soon as she picked up the first one, I'm like, it's a trap. She's going to fall into some trap and it's going to be bad. Because, again, we're at a point now in the story where I just don't remember a whole lot what's going on. And then she walks into the penthouse with Flag and they get married. Cody fingers.
They consummate a marriage.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But she is not actually in the penthouse. She's in the desert.
Right.
And he goes to her.
Right.
And there's several times where like she looks out of the corner of her eye and there's desert there, and when she orgasms she grabs onto the sheets, but it's sand.
Yeah.
And he's on top of her, and when they're in, then finally revealed that they are actually still in the desert. He's a charred body.
A demon.
Yeah. And that's the first time for me visually they showed him as being a demon. They've shown him being demon-like by ripping out the guy's heart in the one episode, and him having kind of special powers and stuff. But this was actually like a visual. Yes, he is actually something that is not earthling.
Sure. Yeah. I don't really know if I understand the choices they made there between going in between the penthouse and the desert. I don't.
Because then in the morning they get in a T-Bird and they drive into Vegas.
Yeah. So I don't really. I mean, they consummate their marriage in the desert. That's what happens in the book. But yeah, I don't really know why they made that choice. But
the only choice I think they're trying to make there is to show that the illusion is still there for her, but she's still got that little bit of a question in her head: what is real and what's not real and whatever. So it does find that really weird. I appreciated it because they're both hot, but like. But yeah, it was just
but I just didn't understand the point of going back and forth between the penthouse and the desert. I don't know what the
I don't know. The Ray, Glenn, and Larry get picked up in the desert and are whisked away, and they drive through Vegas. Nadine and Flag are in the penthouse officially. Flag's floating like Superman again, and the drive down the strip. Now, we love Vegas. We love Vegas for the fun of it and stuff like that. A lot of people see Vegas as very evil, which is why it's kind of the home base of this particular story, right? Yeah. But we love Vegas, and the drive down the strip, especially at night, with all the lights going off and all the show and everything, is a lot of fun. their depiction of it is people getting beat up in the streets and them working at night on the hedges and them remodeling the Caesar statue as flag,
Yeah.
and all the jumbotrons along the strip are all about essentially like you're worthy enough to follow me kind of thing all the way down.
It's propaganda.
It's yeah.
And I mean, I took the reason why they were working on the hedges in the middle of the night is their goal is to make Vegas bring it back to the way it was before everything happened.
Yeah.
As a kind of a draw to keep bringing people in. We have the lights on. Everything looks exactly like it did before, so you can forget or whatever. And then, the beating that goes along with the people being crucified down the strip.
Yeah.
It looks cool. It looks pretty. The hedges are clipped, but behind the scenes or whatever, all this evil still happening.
Right, because the evil people are there.
Right.
And there's people who maybe aren't evil but are stuck there. That was the gladiator fights that happened, like they got picked up in the desert.
Yeah.
And
not everybody's evil, just maybe weak.
Yeah. So when Nadine goes down to greet all of them, she's pale, kind of looking vampire-ish. She's got sunken cheeks, and she's very pregnant.
I'm not sure I agreed again with that choice. In the book and in the original miniseries, she just goes crazy. I mean, they have sex. He's a demon. She has now been impregnated with demon seed, and she just goes crazy. So she looks. I don't know what they were going for. Like
she feels like the Vampire Bride, or Frankenstein Bride, whatever.
Yeah.
And she's pregnant. And I find it interesting that she's pregnant in Vegas, the evil side, and Franny is pregnant in Boulder, the good side.
Yeah.
And I don't know the story from this point, but it feels very much as the spawn of good and evil are being birthed in those locations to continue on this fight. And that's what it feels like. I don't know if that's what they're going for, but that's what it feels like, because now with Nadine pregnant, and it may also be just, Flag is trying to corporealize himself into a new body, and by impregnating Nadine, he can come into the world with a new body that isn't all charred up, and he can rule from there. It feels like that was the story, but again, it's.
No, he even said it earlier in a couple episodes ago that, my bride is coming and she will give me my son, right? So that's just been, it's kind of his mission, was to, he's been working on her for however long years, right? And that was the goal, was to, make her his bride and
bring in his spawn and stuff. And
Yep.
so I overall, I really liked this episode. I felt it was really, again, a good continuation with what we've gotten over the last few episodes. I've been talking about how the snowball was really small the first few episodes, and now it's rolling pretty along pretty good. We are going to continue to say this should be 20 episodes and not 9 or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, maybe 8. Overall, I liked it. They hit all the major points. There was just a couple, like Nadine, I don't know what, like the makeup wasn't even great. I don't know what they were trying to go for there. I don't know what they were trying to go for with the whole consummation of the marriage scene back and forth, and then the trash can man scene. Okay, he got it, but it was irritating. It was irritating.
We talked about this a little bit last week, but his character seems like a MacGuffin getter, and it's kind of disappointing, because I think his character could be a lot more fun to follow.
Well, and just like the way he was doing, like the sounds he was making. I mean, they didn't even like. I couldn't even connect that with anything that a real human being would actually do.
Yeah.
Crazy or otherwise.
Yeah.
So
it's like squeals of glee almost.
I don't
it was just
know.
yeah.
I just didn't connect with that at all. So, there were some, some more in-depth parts that I didn't necessarily agree with, but overall, the story worked.
We got 2 episodes left, and then we'll be done with this series, and we'll have to get on to something else. But I think overall we're liking it, what we got. So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments down below. Let us know what you thought of this episode and our review reaction to it. Be nice. Again, we're, fans. And I don't know everything, and she knows everything. And so let us know in the comments what you thought. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us on all the social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links are in the description down below. And until the next time, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, cult members.